10:31 will kick off my time. Hi, I'm Rebecca Rey, and I'm coming to you from Whadjuk Noongar country in Boorloo, Perth. I know you're all looking forward to the end of the year, so giving up half an hour is a big deal right now. Thank you so much for that, and I hope we make that time really worthy for you. I head up research translation at the Cooperative Research Centre for Transformations in Mining Economies, CRC Time. The purpose of a cooperative research centre is in the name. We're a network founded on cooperation, comprised of almost 80 partner organisations, all seeking to contribute to improving post-mine outcomes. Our projects are co-designed with end users across industry, government, METs, and regional community organisations, and that's through creative and respectful collaboration. Today, I'm speaking with one of our project leaders, Rebecca Jordan, a research scientist and group leader at CSIRO, and her key industry representative in her project, Vern Newton, National Property Manager at Heidelberg Materials. And I've brought this duo together, and they are a great duo, to unpack how collaborations like this work, how each party brings a different perspective to the project, and how the influence of both can move the dial on the challenge. And the challenge that we're talking about, a mine restoration challenge, is how to secure long-term vegetation success in changing climates. So the study that Beck and Vern are involved in is testing how different approaches to sourcing seeds could enhance climate resilience. It's one of the first of its kind globally, and it involves experimental planting at several mine sites around the country. Vern, I'm going to start with you. We know that industry can sometimes express frustration at how long research takes, or that sometimes industry folks might say that the research findings are nothing new to them. They know this already on the ground. You're involved in a lot of CRC Time projects, not just Beck's. What perspective do you bring from the industry side that you wish researchers were aware of?
Look, I think some may say that, I guess, it takes too long to get findings, or industry is aware of the outcomes. And I think that's sometimes because industry works a lot in short time frameworks, and generally it's driven by the financial aspects of our business. So generally there's not much longer, I guess, viewpoint than 3 years in front of us. So I think that's some of the drivers, but I disagree with the idea that research isn't valuable. From my perspective, I think it's critical to have really good outcomes from, I guess, perspectives that we don't often think about. I think from a researcher's point of view, it's really important to listen and understand what's most important to industry. And I think sometimes that doesn't happen, and researchers have their own perspective about what they're trying to achieve. But if we can actually listen to what industry is talking about and asking for, then I think it can really drive benefits more broadly, both with the industry but also the researcher. Collaboration is not about speed, I don't believe. It's more about impact and relevance, and building understanding. So I think industry really value those type of outcomes, and I think once, I guess, industry and science work together and start talking, you get good collaborations, and an environment of trust is also built. And when you have that trust environment, I believe you get the best outcomes, both for the industry partner but also for the researcher as well.
So I'm hearing about building trust through a lot of listening. I'm hearing that the conversations are important at the very beginning as well, to find out what's needed and how to sort of bridge those gaps. Beck, as someone in CSIRO on the research side, I know you're passionate about applied research and ensuring that your work has impact. From your side, what would you want industry colleagues to know about the research world that could oil the gears of collaboration? And is that similar to what Vern sort of said?
Yeah, thanks, Beck. Yeah, it absolutely is. There's definitely those components of thinking about listening to each other and where each other's coming from. I think a couple of really key things that I was thinking about in this space is, one is getting a a collaborative understanding of the fact that we're learning. If we had the answers, we wouldn't be doing research. There is, there is a risk of failure when we do research, but to not brand it as failure, it's part of the learning. We're trying something different. We're trying to innovate. If you're innovating, you're doing something that hasn't been done before. We're not 100% sure of the outcomes. We can have discussions, and we can put a lot of really sensible things in place to mitigate risks. But at the end of the day, we're learning. And so I think one of the really great things that can happen is when you can get that listening and that collaboration between research and industry to go, we're going into this together with wanting to learn in this space. How this is going to turn out, we're not 100% sure, but let's learn together. And even if it doesn't quite go as we want, that's learning as well. So I think that's a really key thing when we step into the research space, is we don't have the answer and we don't know the outcome. And that's why we're here and why we're trying to innovate. And so I think there's also then thinking about touching a little bit sort of on what Vern said as well, the timescales that some research occurs over. So I'm speaking from a sort of an environmental and ecological perspective, and we're talking about organisms and trees that can take a really long time to grow. So again, it's thinking about, we also work in shorter timeframes, but we're also trying to think of those longer term visions and goals. So I think, again, having those really great conversations and listening and really setting some expectations. What do we think we can achieve in this pocket of time? What are we setting up for to learn in that longer period of time? So just realizing some of these aren't quick fixes. They are going to be stepping stones along the way towards something, and just coming together with that common understanding. So everyone's on the same page and moving together with a passion to answer this.
It sounds like quite a vulnerable process, right? Everybody comes together and nobody knows everything. That's the entire point. And so if you're coming with curiosity, and you're coming with vulnerability, and to build that trust in, you need that trust in order to do the learning together, I think. So Vern.
And Beck, I was going to say,
go for it.
Point, I think sometimes, in essence, there may be parties that actually don't want to be there as well. So you may be a researcher, and there may be one particular person within an organisation or a company that's quite keen on it, but somebody else may not be keen on it. So I think the challenge then is to be resilient, because at the end of the day, if you put your walls up, then in essence, all that's going to happen is you're setting yourself up for failure. So you've just got to think your way through how do I reconnect with the people that really want to see this outcome occur. So there's going to be naysayers along the journey, both I guess from a science point of view. When we approach science, there's always strong personalities that may not have the same vision, and also within companies likewise. So resilience is really important, and people just thinking their way through difficult situations.
And finding your champions like Vern who can help navigate.
Yeah. So how, on that then, to find your champions, and talking about particularly the CRC model of co-designing from the beginning project, so everybody's sort of around the table to really get to the meat of the challenge. How important, Vern, is it for end users to be involved in from the very beginning, to co-design those applied research projects, and kind of what's that like in your world?
Look, I think it's absolutely critical, and as Beck, is aware, when we started designing the project that we're working on jointly at the moment, the plants went in the ground probably 18 months later, right? So I think the co-design and I guess what I would call the front end of everything we did was probably the most critical, and that's from working with, from my perspective, our internal stakeholders, whether it's our operational people on site, making sure they're brought along for the journey with us, making sure that they have met the researchers like Beck and Martin in SA, who we work with in the SA project as well. It's really, really important. So I think at the end of the day, unless we're aligned and the parties are genuine in practice, there's no real point commencing the project. Otherwise, it becomes irrelevant, in my opinion. So the other bit is, I think you only get what you get. You only get what you put into the project from day one. So if you're not investing in that project and committed to it from both sides, that you're really going to set yourself up for failure. So I think that's the other component about it. So I think absolutely critical from the front end to have a level of investment to make sure you have success at the back end. And that success may be a failure, but actually understanding the failure and understanding why we got to that point, but learn from it.
Yeah, okay. Setting yourself up for success from the very beginning to make sure that all the parties have agreed from the start on what's expected, who plays what role, and that can change. And we've heard that you need that resilience to allow that to change, particularly because we're talking about periods of time, role changes, scope creep, or different things like that. The research may be taking you in different directions, and that trust, that's when you lean on the trust with your steering committees and advisory groups and so forth. Beck, your project has had some site visits, and we went on one together recently, and you've contributed to a lot of workshops as well. We know it's really important to have an industry champion, as you've mentioned. So how has collaboration with industry and engagement with other stakeholders contributed to the outcomes of the project, bringing people in, and how has that really brought things to life?
Yeah, so I think one of the really key things, and one of the things I've really enjoyed about this project, is having that real end user focus, which means that thinking about the questions we're answering, even how we've designed our experiment, is really done in a way to, as closely as we can, and work with our industry partners to answer questions that they need, but even set up the experiment in a way that industry could keep monitoring those sites into the future, or others could set them up. So it's really sculpted our thinking to crystallize what our research question is, but then really frame it in a really industry applicable manner, so that our outcomes are thinking about, what's important for industry, what's feasible for industry, what are the logistics they're working in, what are the constraints, what are the drivers, what are the things that they do have, and how do those come into play in terms of designing and delivering on the experiment. And it's been really, really great actually to have the external stakeholders come and visit as well, because they've added this really wonderful additional perspective on what we're doing, of seeing what we're doing and thinking about that climate resilience of the plantings, but then adding these other aspects of what context that sits in. For example, having a conversation about, some external stakeholders. We need to sign off on re-veg that's done. What does success look like? How can we do that easily? And, what's the information that's coming out of our project that helps them understand what success would look like and what they would sign off on? So there's all these wonderful flow-on effects that you can have wonderful conversations about, that also potentially open up future opportunities as well. So really, I think that's an example of keeping the dialogue with your industry partners, but continuing that dialogue as well to really see where else does this research contribute to and where else can it grow to going forward.
Yeah. And Vern, what's it like contributing, I suppose? On the other side is you're being asked for time out of your day, but potentially working on challenges that you see every day. So you have skin in the game for this. What's it like from your end to be brought into something and asked for your perspective on it?
Well, I think at the end of the day, from my own personal perspective, it's quite rewarding. Otherwise, what we end up doing, I spoke about, as an industry, we gravitate to the people that we always work with, right? And we don't have necessarily fresh ideas or different perspectives, but also different personalities coming from a research background. But I've also seen that within our business. So, down to our operators at our quarry sites, and our managers, where it gives them exposure to a different way of doing things. And probably one of the most positive things for me personally is the fact that the feedback I get internally, and I think it's really been good for us culturally, where we have these relationships, particularly when we're looking at, environment, trying to make a difference, and our people really, really gravitate to that and want to assist where they can. It's one of the most powerful things, I think, within anybody within our business is being able to contribute, right? So I think it's really, really useful, and I get that feedback often from our operators right through to our managers, and it's really, really pleasing to be involved with it.
Mm-hmm. and I think the word passion is probably overused, but you need, the more I work with projects and the people within them, the more I see that the ones with heart go really far. You're bringing your whole self, and you're bringing your interest. You want to contribute, you want to get value from it for yourself and the world. So that's a big driver for people, I think. It's a human motivation. I just
I think
yeah, go for it. Ben.
trust bit there is really important. So obviously trusting the researcher will obviously inform you of what's happening. If there's some stuff that you may not want to hear, but at least have the conversation, right? And it comes down to trust at the end of the day, and it's a two-way thing. So,
and I think with that engagement and passion as well, like it's been one of the wonderful things of I can speak to the site down here in Tasmania that I've been leading, that Vern was talking about, that we were meeting really regularly as we developed that site, but that also brought in the local managers and staff down here as well. And it's been amazing to work with them as they've got buy-in, because they've been involved in that whole process as well. They've got buy-in to the site, and they're keen to see what's happening to the site and, how is it going? And so you generate, by working really collaboratively and bringing those people on the journey, as Vern said, you just end up with this really wonderful, buy-in to the project and genuine interest that really helps facilitate all the work that's been done.
Yeah. I wanted to take a moment as well to say we will be answering questions in the chat. This is a short half-hour session, but we will have time. I'm keeping an eye on the watch. Please, I know there are PhD students on the call. I've looked through the list. I know there are university folks. I know there's industry people. Other CRCs are here. Government's here. Please throw your ideas and questions in the chat, and we can address them. So you'll hear directly from Beck and Vern. And so my next question I would like for both of you is, given the differences, but also the similarities, how do you leverage the best traits of your counterparts to make the project stronger? So I suppose if we think about non-projects that you've been involved in, or your everyday work that doesn't involve the crossover between research and industry and your counterparts, and what that's like every day. The difference with this is that you have both. What are the good things that you really you take away from, and you leverage that from each other or from other projects that you've worked on? I'm happy to open up to whoever would like to go first.
I was just thinking one of the first things that came, sorry, Vern, one of the first things that came to mind of thinking of leveraging best traits, anyone who's ever worked with Vern, I totally leverage his endless energy and enthusiasm and capacity to go, I reckon we should, and me to get totally sucked in and then go, how are we going to do that? But it always adds value. And I think that's really one of the things that I've really taken away and really, really appreciate about this working relationship, is that the really different perspective that Vern's coming from, of that actually this would add value, like from an industry side, from a stakeholder side, this is the thing that's going to add value. This is the thing that's really going to amplify what we're doing, and not just have it be another science project tucked away, but actually really bring it and share it around. So having that vision to pull me out of my sort of researcher bubble has just been really amazing, and really opened my eyes and really kept me much more focused and made me much more aware of thinking about not just delivering information that's helpful for industry, but how do we actually then get it out to industry and make that connection more. So that's been amazing.
Yeah, and I think if I talk about Beck's involvement, it's more about when we speak. I know that Beck is going to follow through and close things out. And I've learned a bit about how she goes about doing things, which is really, really useful. The other benefit I think that Beck is really useful with, in collaboration with, say, Heidelberg, is the fact that when we walk and talk in a room about what we've done, it's more powerful than one of us talking individually. It actually shows that, two different sectors are now combined as one, talking about how we can actually find outcomes that weren't considered previously. And I think, you can see Beck's pretty energetic as well, so maybe there's a nice match there already, right? But, Yeah, I think that's probably some of the key things I would say from my point of view. And there's some other researchers on the call I see as well, which I'm been fortunate enough to have their passion and also their thoughts about how we co-design stuff historically. And I think that's really, really useful. And that's one of the biggest learnings is from my perspective. I spoke about listening earlier, but it's got to be two ways. I mean, we've both got to listen to each other and then work out what we're going to do.
And Vern, you've got someone on the chat saying they can attest to a great research industry relationship with Heidelberg materials and their great corporate leadership supporting science. So, I mean, I'm reading that as leadership from the top as well, from the science side and also on ground in the real projects and showing up as well, and not just showing up, but showing up ready to go, I think, and bringing that energy and feeding off each other is always a beautiful thing to see that magic happening.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective is if
when
you haven't
conducting research.
if you haven't started the conversation, start the conversation. As simple as that, right? It's pretty simple. Have the conversation. If for some reason the dialogue between the parties has broken down and we're quick to go, well, that person hasn't done A, B, or C, pick up the phone and go, look, it's not working. Let's read this. Let's see if we can reset this and get back at some sort of trajectory to move forward. So I think, the strong projects is all around dialogue and taking initiative, right? If that's not happening, you're doomed for a failure. Okay.
And I think it comes back to that trust we were talking about earlier and the fact, this is research. There's a lot we think about and a lot we do to keep it on track, but unexpected things happen and it does go a bit sideways. But exactly as you're saying, Vern, it's having that conversation and go, look, we've ended up in this situation. We all spoke about it. We put ourselves in the best possible position. Here's a new unexpected thing. How do we navigate it? By having that conversation and navigating it together, you just keep moving and that's, towards where you want to be.
Yeah.
What about, so we know that research, can be lengthy for good reason and results take time and results can't be released until they're ready. How do you manage the industry expectations? Either of you, it'd be good to hear from either side in terms of sharing those results and research outputs. And I know often we have, if there's presentations, there's a conversation about please don't share these. It's in train. The results aren't out yet. How do you manage those expectations on people wanting things and you're not being ready to let them go?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go for it, Ben.
You go first.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's about having that conversation and setting up those expectations. And even though we do have those long-term goals, it's thinking about, well, what are the intermediate wins that we can get along the way? We're aiming for that long-term goal, but what are the things we can discover along the way? What are the things we can put out? So what can we share along the way? Because there will often be something we can share, something we can learn. And so it's just scoping, where are we going to get to at this point in time? What are we going to know? What are we not? And being able to, release that information in whatever way is sensible in the various either report or article, whatever that format might be. But thinking about, you've got a long-term vision and that's great, but try and break it down as well so we can be getting those things out more timely, in the context of the time point they're in, and so what they can say and what they can't say. But those intermediate points as well are definitely there.
Yeah, I think Beck covered it pretty well. I think Lexi asked the question, and Lexi, I think at the end of the day, it's about trying to you set up some frameworks about when the information will be released to make sure both parties are on the same page. I think when you have genuine a relationship with somebody, they want to help the researcher put the publication out. At the end of the day, that's what research is about. Sometimes it's just a bit about timing. The other bit is around lengthy timelines in terms of some of the research. The other thing I would think about is with your research programs, think about, can we go from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3, and that's some of the work we've done in Banksia woodland restoration over the last 30 years. It's been built over a long period of time, but each of the small pieces of research just keeps feeding the story. So can you think about, what can I do today, get some answers that are going to provide answers for tomorrow, but what's the next step, and just lay it out. how you may see what's required over the long term, and just focus on step one to get the thing moving, and then maybe step two will follow after that. Okay.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks, Vern and Beck. So I've heard so far, trust is important, keep the conversations going, have them early, set up expectations so everybody's on the same page, the diversity of thought that different people bring from their experiences and their different places can contribute and really boost the project in different ways, and that we should break up the tasks and potentially release information at different times, depending on what you can, so you can kind of keep it going. And I think that's important for motivation too.
Yeah.
You have four minutes left. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, so I'm going to keep going. Final takeaway, let's keep it short and sharp. Remember that there are researchers on the call, there are industry and government folks on the call. When this webinar ends, what's the next step that you would suggest the researchers on this call could do for their industry colleagues that on the projects that they're on, or industry reps could do for their researcher colleagues to help them in their respective project roles? What's the kind of one action point that they might be able to do, whether it's, pick up the phone or sort that problem out that you've been putting off? Let's start with Beck. I know you'll have one ready to go.
Thanks, Beck. Look, I think Vern started with it and I thought, he's stolen my line, but it's true. And the reason it was right up the front, listen, have a conversation, listen and learn. We all have different drivers, different enablers, which is why the collaboration is so great. We have different drivers and enablers. We also have, say, different KPIs that we're trying to all achieve behind the scenes as well. Come together with that shared vision. A shared vision has brought you together. Understand what that is. Listen to each other and understand the environment that you're working in. And that way you can co-design something that's going to get you that joint win, as well as make sure everyone's still able to leverage their drivers, fix the enablers along the way as well. And you can kind of get that win on all fronts.
Yeah, look, Beck, I think you covered off on what I said, summarised it quite well. But the only other thing I would add would be on what Beck you said then. At the end of the day, something my wife's a teacher and she talks about with kids all the time is understand the currency that makes each child tick, but it's really applicable to the corporate world as well. Understand what the key driver for that is. So what is the currency that makes it tick? And CFOs or CEOs is probably money more than anything else. So how do you think about connecting using what makes that person tick? And obviously that's really important as part of the listening skills that you might do. The other bit I just touch on is just that resilience, right? Just because you've been knocked back once, be resilient, keep having conversations, because at the end of the day, you will connect with somebody that will help you at some point in the time, but it may not happen every time, okay?
Brilliant. We can all be more resilient in our lives, and I think the holidays will also help us boost our cups a little bit. But that's been a wonderful conversation. Understand the currency that makes someone tick. I need to sit with that one for a bit. I think that's a really good, where they're coming from and their motivations and their drivers, and if you can really isolate that for each person in the project, you'll be able to step in their shoes and speak to them from their place. That's always a good thing. Thank you, Beck. Thank you, Vern. Really appreciate your time, particularly as we all hustle to clear our inboxes. Thank you, everyone online. We're going to continue the coffee chat series next year, so keep an eye out. Feel free to subscribe on our website if you don't already get the invitation. So really appreciate it. Have a wonderful summer holidays, everyone, and all best. Take time with your family and friends.
Thanks, Beck.
Thanks, Beck.
And as
Bye.
well. Bye-bye.